Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harping on Rugby. This is the 80 plus column. It's what I call a video newsletter where I have a weekly Wednesday waffle on things that are going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. If you look here, you'll see a list of topics all stacked there, and I hope spend 4 or so harping on them. So let's get cracking. Starting with our first podcast of the season, which was recorded on Sunday evening. We're looking ahead to Leinster's URC campaign. I was going to do one for Ireland and Champions Cup and look at all that kind of stuff, but I think, just the URC kicking off, we kept it to that. And I had two great guests on, two relatively new guests to Harping on Rugby, David Cordial and Hugh Gordon, both also big Leinster and Ireland fans, and we hope to hear a lot more from them as the season went on. They had a great chat on, we looked at Leinster's overall expectations for the season. We looked at players. We each chose a player to harp on that we look to crack on as the season goes on. We looked at all the other contenders from the URC, and we also had a quick go at picking a team for the opening match against Edinburgh. Now, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later because there's since been an injury update, so we'll get to that soon. But it was a great pod, great contributions from them, and like I say, from more of them down the line. If you look one back on our YouTube channel, you'll see a video clip from that recording. But to hear the whole pod, you'll get it at usual places: Apple, Spotify, all the usual platforms. Okay. We got one comment on our YouTube channel. It was from a guy called Angus, and he said, your man is deluded if he thinks that only the double will do for Leinster this year. That was just a comment that was made. We were talking about how, like, the way the last 3 seasons have gone, maybe we should look to, at least win one trophy, but one said, maybe the double is something we should be pushing for. I do take the point, and he goes on to say, after the past 3 seasons, just winning the Champions Cup would have been seen as a massive success of a season. Even a URC win by itself would be an improvement and a step in the right direction, at least. I think that's fair enough. I don't think there's any problem in pushing for perfection every time. I think those are the standards that are at Leinster. They expect to win every game. So by extension, you expect to win or be in contention for every trophy. And just the way the last 3 seasons have gone, nothing will really be sorted until we get to May and we see what happens there. But anyway, listen, we had a great chat. Check it out. It's the last one in our podcast feed. Or if you go to our new content hub, Linktree/Harping on Rugby, you'll get our latest pod, our latest video. Everything can be found there. Okay. Right. Moving on. We want to move pretty fast paced this week. We're going to have the front 5. This is a selection of 5 eye-catching, egg-chasing quotes and links from around the rugby media landscape. And there's loads to talk about this week. I've probably left out as many stories as I've included, but we go with just 5 for this segment. First article is from irishrugby.ie, the mothership, as I call it. The headline reads, Easterby to become interim Ireland men's head coach. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, but they officially announced it earlier in the week that when Andy Farrell will be there for November, but then he's going off to coach the Lions, which makes sense. So for the Six Nations, as it says in the article, the appointment will see Easterby in place for the 2025 Guinness Men's Six Nations and the Men's Summer Tour next year, details of which are to be confirmed. I think it's the perfect choice. And as for the details next year, now I've heard talk that a team without Lions, an Irish squad without Lions, might be going to play the likes of Georgia and Romania, but obviously nothing's to be confirmed yet. And then also this morning, as I was setting up for this recording, they announced the squad for this emerging Ireland tour. It looks like a great squad, loads of Leinster players in it. James Culhan, who I talked about in a podcast, Gus McCarthy, who played well in the preseason against Northampton, Conor O'Tiernig, Stephen Smith, Alex Soroka, Hugh Cooney, just up from the under-20s, Cormac Foley, Tommy O'Brien definitely deserves a shot in the green jersey, no doubt about it. Andrew Osborne, who's played at full back in the preseason. Sam Prendergast, of course. Now we're expecting him maybe to be the main starter at out half, and it's another good chance for him to show what he can do. And Rob Russell as well, who has played well. Another interesting name that's not Leinster, but Zach Ward, who has done really well for the Sevens program, and he's gone to Ulster for this season, and he's going on this tour as well. So it'd be interesting to see how he's get on. Amazing ball carrier. It's a tour that's taking place at the beginning of October. There's a game Wednesday against the Currie Cup side, the Pumas. Then they play Western Force, the Australians, on the 6th of October, and then the Cheetahs on the 9th of October. Very interesting tour. There looks like there's going to be some broadcast news on that as well. So a lot to look forward to. That will affect Leinster's schedule as well. Our games against Dragons, Benetton, and Munster will be affected by that tour. There's no way the players will be able to. All those Leinster players I mentioned will be unavailable for those 3 matches. So I'm thinking our elite test players might come back sooner. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes with the selections over the coming weeks. Okay, so that's our first article. Moving on. The second article is from RTE.ie. It's from Neil Tracy. The headline reads, James Ryan gives Caelan Doris his full support after captaincy change. This is something that Leinster needed to sort. Of course, last year we went with co-captains, which just didn't work. They went James Ryan and Gary Ringrose. I guess they kind of maybe fell between 2 stools with them. But then both got injured. In the early part of the year. They were unavailable for the big Champions Cup matches when we got to the knockout stages. So Caelan Doris took over, and he was brilliant. And it sort of emerged as the obvious choice, despite the two of them. Not that the two of them aren't good leaders themselves in their own right. So it was a kind of a situation that had to be handled. But I think they handled it well. And I think this article goes a long way towards, obviously they would have discussed it with all the players involved. And, this article, James Ryan said, it was a huge honor for me to co-captain Leinster over the last 2 seasons, and we'll just support Caelan now as much as possible. That's, you can't really say more than that. It's been discussed with them, and Caelan is the leader going forward. So fair play to him, and it's definitely a good choice. Okay, so that's the second article. Third article, we're still talking about Leinster here. This is from the Irish Independent, from Rory O'Connor, and the headline reads, Leinster could be out of the RDS for 2 seasons due to redevelopment. Again, not a real surprise. It was a lot of work to be done at the RDS. It was an old structure there, the stands, and they're going to be completely redoing it, demolishing it. For it to take just a year, that's a tight, time to get it all turned around and everything up to code and everything. So, as you obviously know, Leinster will be playing most of their games this season in the Aviva, but of course, bigger matches like Munster and maybe Champions Cup matches are going to be in Croke Park. I think, it might have been asking a bit much for that. Expect that to only last 1 season. It may not necessarily take as long as 2 seasons. What could happen is they might have maybe 3 stands done and be able to let the fans back into the RDS next season. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think the important thing to take from this is that it could go beyond this season, and it probably will. As the article says, no matter how successful the move the Aviva Stadium proves, Leinster will return to the RDS, having signed a 25-year lease in 2022. But to be honest with you, I don't even think even Leinster can even hope to sell out like a series of like matches against, no disrespect to the likes of Dragons, Zebra, those kind of teams. They're not going to sell out the Aviva Stadium for all those games. I think the RDS with a little bit bigger capacity would be ideal, and hopefully that will be done as soon as possible. Okay, article number 4 now, and we move on to the Irish Times, and this is Jade Wilson, who I don't think does a lot of rugby articles, but this is definitely rugby related. The headline is Rugby star Bundy Aki gains Irish citizenship. Now, this was on Monday, I think it was, and a whole host of Irish people or new Irish citizens were sworn in and at a special ceremony, and this happened several times throughout the year. And this time it was Bundy Aki, and you don't think he can easily say nobody deserves it more. I think he's totally bought into the Irish, his time in Connacht and Galway and Ireland, and he's definitely one of us. He's been an amazing player, probably our best player at the World Cup just gone. And he says his quote is, to be granted citizenship is not something you take lightly. I have nothing to complain about here. I love the people, love the culture. Total legend, and totally deserved and delighted for him. So fair play to Bundy, and congratulations to all who were made citizens on the day. Okay, last but not least, in our front 5, we have an article from the Irish Examiner. And this is a topic that comes up again and again, over and over again. The headline reads, why a British and Irish league would not be a rugby game changer. It always happens in the same sequence that comes into the story. You hear the Welsh want to join the Premiership. Then you hear the Premiership, they're into that, but they also want the Irish teams. Then you hear a statement from the Irish teams or the URC or whatever it is that, oh, nothing's happening. And it happened in that order again. But the subject still keeps coming up. British and Irish League. Now, my personal take on it is it's a great idea. I mean, to hear like the Premiership, joining the league. But you see, there was talk of just the Celtic teams joining the Premiership, which would totally leave the South African teams and the Italian teams in the cold. And basically the URC said, no, we're called the United Rugby Championship for a reason. And they quickly made a statement saying, we're staying together. And also, I thought it was funny that a lot of people were talking about a merger. I don't think that that's what would be happening. If anything, the Premiership teams could possibly join a URC, an expanded United Rugby, an even more United Rugby Championship. Merger would be pushing it a bit because the way the Premiership has gone, the Premiership has been losing teams. It's a very bad financial model, and I think if anything, they'll be needing to. They need us more than we need them at this stage. The URC is getting stronger, despite what the Welsh fans might say. And I've said this several times before. I might as well quickly say it again. Though that league, if the URC and the Premiership joined, it would make a total mockery of the Champions Cup, because we'd be left with, you see, what we're trying with the Champions Cup is we're trying to copy the soccer model of domestic competitions and then a united, a continent-wide competition to be over them all, like the Champions League in soccer. But that can't happen in rugby. For one thing, we've got the South African team, so it's not fully European. But also, we don't have, I mean, in Europe, every single country in Europe has its own league. So you've got a structure where you can have a Champions League. But in rugby, if they do that merger or joining or whatever you call it, you're just going to have two domestic competitions feeding into one Champions Cup. It's crazy. If it was down to me, I know this will never happen. If it was down to me, I would just join all the leagues together, have one super major competition with all the Six Nations clubs and the South Africans. And, you know, if you can expand it even further, fine. But, what better name for that than the United Rugby Championship? Because that would be even more united. And then obviously have divisions, Division 1, Division 2, with playoffs and promotion and all that kind of stuff. But that would be my ideal scenario. We don't have to copy what soccer does, is my thing. But anyway, listen, for now, it doesn't look like this is happening. The URC have made a statement that there's no plans. But, you know, it's always going to come up. Every single time it's going to come up. And of course, if the Welsh regions have another not so good season and they're barely getting one team into the top 8, we could hear it all again. But listen, that's the latest on that. So the URC is, we call it the best league. I think it could be better with more teams in it and more competitiveness, but we'll see what happens. So that's my take on that. And so that completes this week's Front Five. Remember, you can get all the links now. All the links you put up there, there was a QR code if you want to scan it, but also all the links and all the supporting materials to the things I'm harping on for this video. You can check out our blog, which is conveniently at the address harpingonrugby.blog. Okay, so check that out. Okay, moving on. We talk now about the Leinster squad update. We finally have a squad update this year. Every week during the season, on Monday or Tuesday, Leinster released their squad update from the previous weekend, what players are injured, what's available, and that gives us a sense of what team we might see the following weekend for the big match for Leinster or Ireland. So they finally posted their first update of the season this week. We got word that Liam Turner, Lee Barron, Alex Soroka are all returned to full training. Jamison Gibson Park, we thought he might be ready for the new season, but he's still stepping up his rehab. I'm thinking he might become available, hopefully, for that Munster game in Croke Park, fingers crossed. And then, of course, there's the dreaded line section at the bottom of the injury update, which is no further updates. Two big names in there. Dan Sheehan's knee, we know that. Chances are he won't be back until 2025. And then you got RG Snyman, who's recovering from a foot injury. There's been pictures of him in training, including pictures of him being lifted in line out. So that's a good sign. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But anyway, listen, I have picked what I think could be a possible 23 based on the selections we've seen in the preseason. I think we're going to see Ross Byrne at out half. It's there on the screen. Now, I just want to make it clear, this is nothing like the Jerry Thornley teams you see in the Irish Times the night before a team announcement, as if I'm trying to tell you, oh, I had this inside knowledge. No inside knowledge. This is totally on me. And included there in number 23, I think Mackerleen, who has done really well. He had a really good cameo performance against Northampton. He really showed like he wants to play, and I think they like to reward players who've done well. So I've rewarded him by putting him in my 23, but there's a lot of ways it could go. But that's my suggested lineup there, and we'll see how it pans out when the team's selected on Thursday. Okay, next up, we have Troll Patrol, where we detain a social media commentator and charge them with gaslightery and general online mayhem. We turn our attention back to Kiwi journo Bin Smith. This week, I'm pretty sure he can't function without trolling the South African rugby fans at least once every day. And as you can see here, he's at pains to remind them that despite the World Cup wins, they do tend to lose to Ireland, and this simple ranking does that trolling perfectly. I have a feeling the box would consider him to be something of an expert ranker, but only if someone like Jonathan Ross says it for them. But anyway, on this subject, actually, a hat tip to our Harpin contributor, Rich Mifsud. He shared a reel in our WhatsApp group from Instagram, which is actually a clip from the latest Chasing the Sun documentary, where Rassie Erasmus is laying into a squad, real serious, giving them a serious bollocking after losing to Ireland at the World Cup. I mean, yeah, maybe they went on to do better than us, but at least this is proof that we played our part in inspiring their win, I guess. I'll add that clip as well to the show notes on the blog. Okay, now we move on to our what we call our competition updates, where we feature Leinster and Ireland men's teams throughout the season and their competitions. But in this section, we look at all the rest of the rugby world that we think is relevant. And of course, top of that list is always going to be the Irish women's team, who, as you probably know, had an amazing win over the Wallaroos in Belfast on Saturday. I watched the whole game. It was an amazing display. You could be cynical and say maybe the Wallabies they have an experimental side, blah, blah, blah. You cannot take from the Irish team, especially when you consider where they've been and how they played in the past. And I never forget that day. It was in the Aviva Stadium when Leinster played their very first game in what was then the brand new United Rugby Championship. They're playing the Bulls. And as it was happening, it was a blowout. Leinster won the game comfortably. And at the same time, the Irish women were losing to Scotland. And that meant they didn't qualify for that World Cup. And I think that was the one of the lowest points that the Irish women had. And that's only like 3 years ago. So what you've got a situation now, they've gotten to this point. They have a new coach, Scott Beeman, new sets of players, and they're starting to integrate more of the women's team. They've improved. We just had a great interprovincial championship. And what he had to do is he had to take the 4 provinces squad and he had to knit them together into a team ready for this match. It was to commemorate 150 years of Irish rugby test matches. It was a big occasion. They had a cracking New Jersey to wear. It was the Kingspan Stadium. It was an amazing occasion for all involved. But what they needed as well was a performance on the pitch. And by God, did they get it. I mean, it only took 4 minutes for Ireland to get their first try. Australia fought back. It was 7-5 a few minutes later. But from there, well, let's just say Aoife Wafer and say no more. No, I mean, she was next level. I mean, she was world class, and we saw it in the interprovincials. And she didn't play that much part. She came off the bench a couple of times and just coming back for an injury or something. But she played well. But when she played for Leinster, you knew she was there. She didn't need the red scrum cap to know she was there, I can tell you. And this was the same. She went up even another level again against Australia. She dominated the game, carries, jackling, tries, everything. But on top of that, it was an impressive team performance from 1 to 23. It was great. The thing that I couldn't understand is they had Eve Higgins on the bench. Now, if you can afford to leave a player of the quality of Eve Higgins on the bench, you've got a squad that's in good nick. And they were obviously well coached. They were playing to all their best ability. It was great to see Emer Constantine back playing well. It was just an amazing performance from start to finish. And they could have even got more tries, you could argue. But the final score there was 36-10 to Ireland. And now they're going on. They've named the squad since then. That's going to go to the WXV1 competition, and we'll be following that. They're going to play New Zealand, Canada, and the USA. And best of luck to them. And we're going to follow them every step of the way on this section of the 80+ column. Okay, moving on now to the Irish Shield. Now, we joke about it because, I mean, as Leinster fans, we've won it for the past 3 seasons, but we don't really, we don't brag about it. There's going to be no open top buses going around displaying it. But still, it's top Irish province. And last season, this is the second season where it's not just determined from all the results in the URC, it's only from the Interpros, the results from the Interpros. So even though we lost to Ulster twice, we won the other 4 matches, and Ulster lost a couple of games, so we finished on top and we won the Irish Shield. So that's how it works. And as it turns out, I don't know if this happens that often, but week 1 of the URC sees a game from the Irish Shield. Munster host Connacht in the opening game, so that'll be interesting. So that's going to kick off, and we're going to be following that as well here week in, week out. Now, another thing that kicks off this weekend is the All-Ireland League. Just the men's, the women's are the following week. I don't know, is that a good idea to kick them out, have the kickoff at this very same week as the URC, because that's going to take a lot of the attention away. But I will say that the Division 1A has some interesting matchups. They've got the Ulster Derby, Ballynahinch against City of Armagh. They've got St. Mary's, who are back in the top flight after getting promotion last season. They host Clontarf. That's going to be a big game down in Temple and there's a couple of Leinster-Munster clashes. You got Gary Owen hosting Lansdowne. UCD v Young Munster. That game's going to be on YouTube. BF Sports Analysis. I'll put that link in the program notes and on the blog. But obviously the biggest game is going to be a repeat of last year's final, Terranure against the champions Cork Con. That is the best possible. They've done that on purpose. They want to get maximum exposure, maximum attention on the league. Again, it's a shame it's the same weekend as the URC kicks off, but maybe they had no choice. That's a big game. That's going to be on YouTube. All those games kick off at 2:30. And, of course, right the way down through the division. So if you have a local team and you know they're playing, do check them out and support your local club, okay? Okay. Another competition kicking off this weekend is the Premiership. Now, obviously, we were talking earlier about them looking to merge or join or whatever they're going to do. But they're plowing ahead anyway this season with their 10-team Premiership for the second year in a row. Northampton Saints are the champions. It's the same format, pretty much, except this year there is the possibility of relegation. It depends on the team that wins the championship. I don't like that. They've got to meet criteria later in the season. I think that should all be decided before the season starts. But anyway, the format is 10 clubs play each other home and away. From Leinster's point of view, we've got two opponents in the Champions Cup pool, Bristol and Bath. They're both playing on Friday evening, same as Leinster. Bristol are away to Newcastle, and Bath is probably the match of the round against Northampton Saints. And that's a big game. Finn Russell and all, but of course Ross Maloney as well has joined Bath as well. So best of luck to him with his new team, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. I might try to have a look at that one and have a chat about it on next week's video. So that's the Premiership kicking off this weekend. Okay, now we move on to the top cat horse. As you can see, that those emojis, top cat horse. That's why I do that. Just that's my thing. I don't know. That had round 2 last weekend, and again we're following the clubs. Leinster are going to be playing in the Champions Cup. Both Claremont and La Rochelle had wins in the first week, but both Claremont and La Rochelle had defeats in their second week, and they had big away tasks. Claremont were away to Racing, and La Rochelle away to Toulouse. Neither was able to win. Neither was able to get a bonus point. But they'll both, they'll definitely be featuring this season. Of course, when we're talking about the top 14 this season, we have this feature we've been calling a Hog Watch, where we keep an eye on Stuart Hogg's fortunes off the pitch, because there's a lot of media articles where they try to spin it as if nothing's going on. But he's got these court cases, and I was actually supposed to be up in court last week, but he was arrested. He was actually arrested for a third time on Tuesday. It was the day he was set to stand trial at Jedburgh Sheriff Court. And now, so because of that, the headline from the article I saw was said he's charged with stalking a second woman, as more details emerged. That's why he was arrested again. He didn't feature. He played for Montpellier in their first game in round 1 of the Top 14. Scored a try and they won. This weekend he didn't play. They lost. He's got a trial now in November, so this is going to be hanging over him. Again, I want to stress, until he's had his day in court, we can't say anything for definite, but by the same token, we can't pretend it's not happening. We can't pretend the charges isn't there. So I just want the media just to present what is actually happening with him and not make it like he's, separate his on-field from off-field, because something like this, you can't really. If I was him, I would just lay low. But anyway, that's the latest with him. But anyway, round 2 of the Top 14 is this weekend. The big game, I suppose, is Stade Français on Sunday evening, hosting Toulon. The champions Toulouse are at Montpellier. La Rochelle host Pau, and Claremont are at home to Bayonne. We'll be keeping an eye on all of them, from Leinster's point of view, especially with the Champions Cup pool. Okay, next up, quickly, we have a look at the Pro D2. We're going to be following the second tier of French rugby because it's such a big deal. It's the standard there would a lot of those teams would hold their own, even in the URC, not to mention the Premiership. It's a very high standard. They're all trying to get into the big money in the top 14. So it's the third round for them last weekend. And after 3 rounds, there's only 2 teams with 3 wins, Dax and Biarritz. And they both have home matches this weekend, so it could well be 4 out of 4. So we'll see what happens there. So that's the Pro D2. All those, you see graphics there with the results and the fixtures and all that, but they'll all be on the blog as well, harpinonrugby.blog. All these tables and graphics and the latest state of play in all these competitions will all be there, okay? That brings us to the Test Rugby and the Rugby Championship, which resumes this weekend. There's the Bledisloe Cup, which, the way Australia have been playing, you have to think might be something of a formality. But that said, New Zealand are under a lot of pressure, like just 1 win in 4 matches this season. It's not a very, very all black kind of a record. And they're away in the Bledisloe Cup. You don't know Joe Schmidt. I don't know. It could be anything. It's an early start on Saturday morning. You don't know how it can happen. And you can say the same for the match Argentina against South Africa in the evening. That's a late kickoff. That's like, I think it's 11 p.m. our time. But I said before the Rugby Championship started that South Africa have to be favorites to win all 6 of their matches, because they just had the 2 World Cups. They had New Zealand at home twice, and plus all the other 3 clubs or test teams had new coaching setups. So it was that I don't think it could be laid out better for them to win all 6. But this could be the tester. Argentina had that humongous win over Australia. No matter how bad you think Australia are, you can't deny this is an amazing performance for the Pumas. They'll be on a high. They're going to have South Africa, the Springboks coming in, world champions. This will be a good chance to pick them off. That could be an interesting one. Still fancy the Springboks, but you don't know, and that could be an interesting one. 2 interesting games there. We'll see how they pan out on Saturday. Okay, quickly to the Rugby Super Cup. I say quickly because the way it's formatted this season, there's 2 pools, but the champions for the competition are going to be the winners of Pool A. There's only 3 clubs in it. There's Black Lion, the reigning champions, and then there's the Lusitanos from Portugal and Castilla y León from Valladolid in Spain. And Black Lion got involved for the first time. They were in Valladolid. They won 54-3. And I'm just going to wonder, are they just going to blow out all 4 of their games? We're going to have to wait and see. They play Lusitanos in their next game away from home. And if they win that one, it's just very, it's almost look like a formality. We'll see what happens there. All those games are being screened live on the Rugby Europe website. So check them out if you're interested. Okay. Now, to South Africa we go for the Currie Cup. They had their semifinals. They have a short season now. They've shortened their the regular season to just 10 weeks, 10 matches for all the clubs, and then the top 4 go in the semifinals. Semifinals for this weekend. I've noted a lot of high scoring in this competition, and that didn't stop in the semifinals. I actually watched the Lions play the Cheetahs, and that was an amazing game. Cheetahs got off to a big lead, but Lions pulled them back. They were back and forth, back and forth. The Lions had a 2-score lead going into the end. The Cheetahs pulled back a try. They got within 9 points, but then missed the conversion and left themselves only a couple minutes left. So the Lions, who topped the regular season table, go into the final. The other semifinal was the Bulls against the Sharks. And that was another thriller. That did end in a draw. That went to extra time, and the Sharks only ended up winning by having scored more tries. So that means the Lions against the Sharks in the Currie Cup final this Saturday afternoon. That'll be an interesting one as well. It's a massive competition for them as well, but they're both gearing up. They both, need big performances. Of course, the Sharks are looking for a big season in the URC, having won the Challenge Cup. So, and the Lions, they're always thereabouts. They feel like they can be in contention for the top 8 as well. So it'll be very interesting final. I'd be on for checking that out on Saturday afternoon if you can. Okay. Just a quick word on the Harpin Prediction League. This is a league between our 10 of our Harpin contributors on our blogs. I'll be giving you updates on this throughout the season. Just a bit of laugh between the 10 of us. There's no real prize for the winners, but there is a forfeit. For the past 3 seasons, we've got this jersey that's half London Irish, half Munster. It's an ugly looking jersey. I don't like those half and half jerseys anyway, but this is particularly bad. The idea is that if you finish bottom of the table, you've got to You get sent the jersey, you have to wear it, you have to post it on social media. As you can see there, I won it the first season, and Keego's got it the last two. He'll be keen to get rid of it this season, and we'll be keeping it up to date on that week in, week out. And we have a cup competition as well. We'll explain more about that as we get closer to it, okay? Right. We're coming to the end now, but first it's time for our latest squirrel clip, I call it, where I distract you with a bit of quality Leinster or Ireland rugby while I check my phone to see if any news is broken while I've been harping. From next week, I'll probably be using clips from the most recent match, but for now, I want to go back to Leinster's Champions Cup quarterfinal at the Aviva Stadium against our old pals La Rochelle. We had opened up another 17-point lead in the first half, only to see it cut back to 10 before the break, so we badly needed a good start, and seeing as La Rochelle were kicking off, I don't think it could have gone better for us. I mean, first there was a booming exit kick from Jamie Osborne. Then the line out at halfway saw Andrew Porter get over the ball to jackal a penalty. And just like that, we had a line out right outside their 22. And from there, I'll just let the boys in blue take it away while I scroll and look to see if there's any news since I've been chatting.
Sheehan to Baird. No problem with the first line of the second half. Pass back inside to Lowe, straight into the brick wall. That is Jonathan Jonty.
Oh, there was two fellas half there. Ross Byrne felt that one.
Here's Caelan Doris trying to carry into Botsia. Almost got a hand on it. Gibson Park to find Sheehan. Just checked his run to prevent Kerr-Barlow getting over the ball. Short pass from Henshaw to Osborne. Leinster get over the gain line. In the centre, puts it back for a scrum half. Dummy back inside from Doris. Byrne, Furlong, soft hands, better hands.
Great hands.
James Lowe outside the line. Barry's quick, back inside. Shorty. Ryan Barry doesn't need anybody. He does not need anybody. And Leinster off the mark at the start of the second half.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect try for Leinster. It's as good a start to the second half as you can have, especially against them, and especially given how badly we needed to score to start the half. And we just that was excellent. Excellent rugby there at the Aviva Stadium. Okay, listen, I had a quick look at the news. Didn't see anything rugby related. I did see that, unfortunately, Italian football great Toto Schillaci, everyone from my generation anyway, will remember him. Broke our hearts in the 1990 World Cup in Italia 90. But that's definitely sad news. He's definitely an iconic football hero, especially, even with from within Irish sport. But rugby-wise, I don't see anything else. Of course, other things will happen, but we'll follow on the blog later. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there for now. There is, of course, more to come from us this week as the URC kicks off. On Thursday, I'll have Keego joining me for a preview of Leinster's season opener in Edinburgh. Then on Friday, check out Dublin South FM, where I'll be back doing my weekly Harpin segment just after the 5 o'clock news. Then we will, of course, be commenting on social media throughout the match on Friday night. Be sure to head to our Facebook page at the Full-Time Whistle to leave your thoughts, and we'll share the best comments. And finally, there is the Wrap Pod, which we'll record on Sunday evening. So in the meantime, don't forget our new link, Linktree/Harpin on Rugby. And I hope you'll keep tabs on all our social media feeds, and wherever you are in the world, be sure to enjoy your rugby. Stay safe, everyone. Slán.